Thank you so much for being here. I can feel the energy in the room. This is our first time in person for an umbrella event since 2019. I just am so thrilled. And I want to welcome, we also have some friends joining us virtually. So I want to welcome our virtual participants as well. And I also want to say just a slight change to the agenda. Unfortunately, President Schatzel cannot be with us today. So it'll be our two of our women presidents from the University System of Maryland. And I want to introduce our president, Bruce Jarrell.
Good morning. How come I never get a turnout like this? The room is full, but it's a great pleasure to be here and to introduce this session. Jennifer, I think I was at the last session we had. I don't recall exactly what it was, but I've been to a few of them, and it's so great to see all of you here. This organization certainly fulfills one of the main missions that I think is important for this university, and that is the career development of all of its people, but certainly in this case, all of the women at this university as well. So I applaud you for being here, for taking an interest in your career. I applaud Jennifer Lichman and those of you who helped set this up for the women on this campus. I think it's just a glorious thing, and I hope to see you advance in your career as we go along. I'd like to introduce our speakers, but before I do that, I want to mention to you, as Jennifer said, Dr. Schatzel could not be here. Now, she could not be here for a very good reason, and some of you may have seen it, but I just want to point it out to you. The announcement today's what, Tuesday? So was it Monday or last Friday? Whenever it was, she was announced the new president of the University of Louisville. Now, I'm going to tell you that Dr. Herman, who many of you know, took great offense because he was at the University of Kentucky. He did teach me how to say Louisville, and I hope I said it correctly, but in any event, okay. Now, but I did want to make a point with this group about Kim's appointment to this position. First of all, Towson's a really prestigious university. Louisville is a really prestigious university with deep research roots, with very significant programs in education and access of the people of Kentucky to that university. And I was particularly struck by what the Board of Regents said about her, the Board of Trustees there, and I wanted to just read them to you because, again, for the people in this room, that's what you can become too. And it was her track record of leadership includes advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Towson University has the second highest graduation of the University System of Maryland. And Towson is one of the few universities in our system and in the nation where Black, Latinx, and Pell eligible students achieve the same graduation rate as the overall student population. That's a monumental achievement at Towson. And then the last thing about her, which again was quite striking to me, is that the Board of Trustees made mention, and if you hear her press release, it's very well done. She navigated a non-traditional path to higher education leadership. She is one of less than 2% of university presidents who have significant business and private sector experience, spending more than 20 years in that sector. In other words, you don't have to just become a leader in higher education by going through higher education. There are other pathways into this university as well. So I just think that's spectacular. And you all should take pride that she was part of us for almost 7 years. So I'm sorry she can't be here, but she really is setting a shining star example. Now we have three other actually shining star examples for you today. And let me introduce them to you. The first is Dr. Valerie Sheares Ashby. She's now the president, the first woman president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. She started at UMBC in August of this year. She was prior the dean at Duke University's Trinity College of Arts and Sciences. She is a organic synthetic chemist. You all remember organic chemistry in college? How difficult it was? Well, she would have been your teacher. Okay, but she's really a very expert in that. And I was particularly noticed that her expertise extends to things that are important to this university, X-ray contrast materials, things like that. So very relevant to us, and drug delivery. She is a graduate of University of North Carolina, both her bachelor's and her PhD, and has had many awards from the National Science Foundations and others. So Dr. Sheares Ashby, could I welcome you up to the stage? The second is Dr. Carolyn Lepre, Lynn, who's now president of Salisbury University, again, since this summer. Dr. Lepre, it's nice to have you here. She became the president this year at Salisbury University in the middle of July. She came from Radford University, where she was provost and vice president for academic affairs. She has extensive professional experience in the area of communication, having worked in various national publications, media outlets, et cetera. And her research is focused on media representation of gender and diversity. Again, relative to this group here, relative to us all. Dr. Lepre earned her bachelor's in English and journalism at Miami University of Ohio, her master's at Ohio University, and her PhD in mass communication from the University of Florida. Welcome, President Lepre. And of course, we also have Dean Renée Hutchins, and many of you know her. And I'm simply gonna not let her get away with that. She's a very distinguished scholar. She was here at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law for 13 or 14 years. She somehow got the idea to move to the University of District Columbia for 3 years. And Dr. Ward and I actually took the train down to DC to convince her to come back here. So it's such a pleasure to have her here. She's a graduate of Yale, is it? Did I say that right? Yale University. Now, last, I want to make one other comment. First of all, the three women sitting on this stage have been at the University System of Maryland for a total of 14 months. So they're very experienced and knowledgeable. But the second thing, and actually this is really important, there are 12 presidents in the University System of Maryland. 5 are women. You should take pride in that. So with that, I will turn it over to Dean Hutchins. Don't ask any law questions.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Wait, I think I have to turn this thing on. All right, now I'm in compliance. So, Dr. Ashby, Dr. Lepre, is it okay if I call you Valerie and Carolyn? Okay, thank you. So the first one we're going to start off with is a softball. Can you name a book or movie or song that describes your career path? And I will start with you, Carolyn.
So this was you sent us this one ahead. Thank goodness.
I did.
If this was a right now question, I don't know where I would start. But it was actually a fun exercise to think about how you would have a title that would define your career. And I found it maybe in an unusual way. One of my daughters is an enormous K-pop fan, and she sends me songs all the time that she wants me to listen to. And as I was driving here, a song popped up on my Spotify, and it was called "Turbulence" by a band called ATEEZ. And I thought, in a really weird way, that's a perfect description. I'm one of those strange people who loves turbulence when I'm on an airplane. I like those little, I know.
Horrified the entire room.
I know, I heard that, yeah. But I love those little jostles. And I don't know whether it's because it makes my stomach kind of jump with excitement or what it is. Maybe it's nervousness. I don't know what it is. But in some ways, that's sort of how I think my career trajectory has been, is I love those little disruptive moments that make me think a little harder about how to do my job better, how to think about the next steps. Sometimes turbulence diverts you from where you thought you were going to end up. And it can be in incredibly meaningful ways that you end up somewhere a little bit differently and have those new adventures. So turbulence is my answer. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Valerie?
I so love that. I'll just say, I've known Lynn now. She's been on the job, I think, like 12 days longer than I have. So she's my resident expert.
Bet.
She is the resident expert for me on this. And I so appreciate that. That you'll be surprised by my answer, but I feel you when you say that. So every time I hear this question, and we talked about it yesterday, the first thing that pops in my head is let it be. And the reason is because I just have never known. I did not have a path that I had decided upon. I didn't know I was going to be here 7 months ago. Here it is, right? And so I try to tell my students and those I mentor, do the best you can where you are with what you have. Get you some mentoring, all those things, and then just watch what happens. Like I have no idea what tomorrow is going to be. And in these jobs, if you need to know, it is if you're not a fan of turbulence, it is a challenge. Every day we go in with a calendar, we have no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
Yep.
So it sounds like, so both of you in identifying the title that described your career, it sounds like you were not from the womb, I want to be a college president. Is that true?
I did not want to be a college president in February. Let's be clear. No.
Why not?
I want you to talk.
No, I'm going.
So I will tell you that every job I've ever had has been my favorite job at the time. And I literally, when I came in the room, I met a student who I taught organic chemistry to in, I don't know what year it was. Don't tell them. That was my favorite job when I was doing it. And so it wasn't that I did not want to do it. I just loved where I was.
Right.
And, and it will appear, right? So.
You agree?
Absolutely. Actually, the beautiful way she just described that really resonates with me. And in some ways, I think that's, I know there are some people who go in very intentionally and think, oh, I want to be a college president. For me, it was more one thing kind of led to another thing, and other people saw characteristics in me that gave me the self-confidence to think, oh, okay, maybe I should try that. But every single time I was in a different position, whether it was directing the honors program or being in the classroom or being a dean, I wanted to be all in that moment. And I think if I had lived my life differently and always been looking for whatever was next, I'm not sure I would have gotten where I ended up, because part of, I think, the excitement about serving in a role like this is to have gone through all those steps in a really meaningful way, not necessarily in a purposeful way, although I suppose when you look back on it, it does look purposeful, but in a really sort of intentionally enjoy what you're doing right now and try and get the most you can out of it for all the reasons that make you happy and hopefully are doing good for the people you're in contact with.
So I'm going to ask you a question that's off script a little bit, but it's triggered by what you both said, because it resonates so much with, I think, sort of a lot of women in the room and their own career paths. Do you think there's a gendered difference in the let it be turbulence, sitting in the space where you are, growing in that space and being elevated? Do you think there's a gender difference there?
Okay, I'll speak. So I believe that there was, for me.
Yeah.
I won't put that on every human, but for me. And I think I say that because my 4 mentors, who I've had, a couple I've had since I was 17, and I've had them this entire time, right? They always saw in me what I could not see in myself, and they saw it with that Y chromosome.
Yep.
And it's a different thing, because I'm thinking, when literally 10 years ago, you asked me when I came in the room about Freeman, 10 years ago, when I met Freeman for the very first time, he looked at me, as he has done for many people, by the way, so I was not special. And he said,
You are special.
he said, "You're going to be a president." Now, at that time, I wasn't doing any administrative leadership. That was 10 years ago. It was in his office that I now sit in.
Right.
And he said those words. That's a bold move. I couldn't see that for me. That's gendered in some ways for me. I'm worried about all the qualifications. Okay, for the men in the room. Men don't typically do that, right? They just think, "Oh, you gave me the job. I can do it." Okay, that's not fair, but generally it's a little, but for me.
Speaking in broad generalities.
There's actually nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's actually nothing wrong with that. That's not the way I have to be super qualified.
Right.
In my mind,
Right.
to be qualified. And having male mentors just took that away. So
Did you have the same, Lynn?
It's the reason I sort of diverted to Valerie on that one at first is because I get asked that question all the time is sort of, how has being, a female president, or how has being a female impacted how you've been in administrative roles. Actually, the law professor will appreciate this. Someone asked me this on an interview once. Imagine that moment.
wow.
Our general counsel just rolled over. She was like, "Oh, no."
Anyway, I'm not sure I ever thought about it quite like that. I'd never felt that my career was held back because I was a female. If anything, it probably helped. I think the way, and maybe it does make it gendered, is I'm a daughter, a mother, a wife, and all those pieces of who make up you. I've always tried to sort of bring exactly who I was into every position I was in. And that meant I was bringing in the fact that I was a woman. And so I suppose that does make it gendered to a certain extent. But I don't really think about it in what I had or didn't have versus a male candidate. I never walked into an interview thinking, "Oh, I got to beat out all the men." It was, I have to beat out all the other candidates or whatever it was. So it's an interesting question that I'm not sure I have a perfect answer for yet.
So you're both there now.
Yeah.
You have ascended to the vaunted territory of being a college president. What do you love about being a college president?
And my people.
Yep.
It's the same thing I've loved about every job I've ever had. We have the gift of being in the people business. If it's 18 to 22-year-olds in my classroom who are scared to death and all want to go to medical school, they all want to come here, or go get it. The joy for me in seeing them become who they already are. They already are it. My job is to help them see it for themselves. Right? Oh, that's joy. When I'm a teacher at heart. And when I stepped out of the classroom into more administrative roles, now I get to think about, so now I don't just have the students in my class, I have all of these students.
Right.
When I had the College of Arts and Sciences, I had 80% of the undergraduates at Duke. Here I've got, 13,000. Yeah. It just gets better and better because I just get to be a part of who they already are. My job is to make sure that nothing is in their way. Beautiful. Every day, all day. I love it when it's my faculty and they are achieving what they need to achieve in research. I love it when I just left Lakeland School and I see what we're doing to bridge the gap for math and science scores for K through 12. It's just, we're in the people business of who are these precious people. And my job is to be a part of helping them get there. So it's joy all day for me. Not all day.
Talk about that. I'm like,
come out of my mouth and I say, "Wait a minute, Val."
You're like, "That's a lie."
Yeah.
Let me bring it back.
There is joy every day. Okay. There is joy every day, not all day, not all day.
Okay.
Yes, to all of that. I think, the knee-jerk reaction to that question is I love everything. And it's not entirely true.
Yeah, that's right.
It's right. There are always the hard parts and, the email, just, mushrooms while you sleep. Right? Never go to sleep, because when you wake up, you never know what you'll find. But but beyond, like, right, it's great, right? I know. Like this morning, you open it up. Oh no, close that down. I think the thing certainly the reason that I've always done all of this is for the students and for the people who are around us, and trying to, I really believe in trying to pay it forward. I had an extraordinary privilege of parents who wanted me to get a higher education, and I had mentors who wanted me to succeed and all those things. I also really love the problem solving pieces of it. And maybe this goes back to the turbulence piece. In some ways, the days where I'm going in to confront an issue, a challenge, an opportunity, whatever it is, those are the days where I'm just really fired up to be there. And they're always to get the obstacles out of the way so that we can do the good work for our students. But I love that aspect of the more, as my positions have increased in responsibility and scope, with each one, the ability to work on those bigger challenges while always thinking about the one human that might impact. That's really exciting, because in some ways, the levers have just gotten bigger that we get to pull. Before it was, I have to work on the little pieces. Now I have just a privilege to be able to pull some of those bigger levers and make those opportunities happen. And that's incredibly gratifying and super exciting.
To do things, do you find, so as you're rising administratively, do you have to do things to intentionally stay connected with the thing that brought you there, the people? So are there
100%.
specific things that you do to ensure that you're not becoming disconnected from the thing that makes you love the job most?
Definitely. I mean, I can give a very short answer. I would love to start teaching again. I taught when I was a provost. This has probably been the longest stretch since I've been in the classroom. I think that's incredibly important. And in the meanwhile, when we say we're going to go on a listening tour, really listen. Go out and don't just talk to the people and the students who are recommended by others. Go to the dining hall and just sit down, embarrass somebody, and just talk to me. But I think that does help. And then, when someone comes up to you when you're walking around campus, pause and realize, and they'll always say to you, maybe they don't, I bet they say this to you too. Oh, I'm sure you have somewhere more important to be. 100% no. I have nowhere more important to be than standing here talking to you about whatever's on your mind. Because if you were bold enough, and I never would have been when I was their age, to stop a college president while they're walking across campus, you stop and you listen. And so I think I think you do have to be very intentional about it, though, because it's easy to get stuck in the management of the job, the management pieces, right? The emails and the busy work, but you have to get out and reconnect.
Yeah, same. I do it intentionally.
Yeah.
And so when I was a dean, I had office hours for students. And now I have office hours for students Thursdays from 3 to 5. Anybody can come. And they come in droves. I mean, it's just packed every Thursday from 3 to 5. That's not the only time that I see them, but I see a lot of them.
Right.
Who just come in. Sometimes they say, I heard you say that, and I brought 6 of my friends, right?
Awesome.
And that's what they do, right? And I get to hear who they are, where they are, and reconcile, right, what I think we're doing with what they are actually experiencing. The other thing that I do, to your point, is I just walk campus.
Yeah.
And it's so phenomenal. You get everything from people who are in awe, which is a bizarre thing.
Selfies.
It is. You got used to
Oh, I
I'm
don't
selfie to
understand
death.
that.
Like
Yeah.
I'm just not that person. But I do it for them because they're just so doggone excited. What's great for me is when my students of color, in particular, but also my women. Oh my goodness, it means something to them. So that, yes, intentionally not losing touch with my students first, but then also my faculty. Right? I'm a faculty member,
Right.
And making sure I know what they're doing in their research, going to a class, just being in throughout the campus, being out and about in the campus matters.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like you're innovative leaders. That is the theme for Umbrella, for this group, for this year. Are there other things that you do to be innovative leaders, right? Like, what does that term mean to you? What does it mean to be an innovative leader, and how do you lean into that work?
So this is fascinating. When I saw those words, I thought that I love the combination of innovative leader. For me, I wouldn't naturally call myself that.
You would or would
I
not?
would not.
Would not.
I would
Okay.
not naturally call myself that. And when I said that to one of my mentors, he said, "What are you talking about?" That's why I have them, right?
Yeah.
And he said, you did this, you did that, you think about this differently. I don't,
But he had to see it.
he had
for
to
you.
see the words,
Yeah.
because in my mind, when I think innovative, I think entrepreneurship, and I'm not that person in my own mind. He was like, "That is ridiculous." Yes, you are. But the way that I do it is my way. And that, did I just lose people?
I think you must have hit the
Turn it off.
button, maybe.
Oh, I'm green. Okay, here we go. The way that I think about it is I think about it in terms of diversity.
Mhm.
So my version is I build a diverse team, and nobody on that team has the same skill set and expertise that I have.
Mhm.
And what happens in there? And then I get to go out and say the thing that happens, and people attribute it to me, right? That's often
That's
what
the leadership piece of it.
Well, and the beauty of leadership is that, you get all the credit, you get all the blame, neither is true,
Mhm.
right? But that diverse team is incredible.
Yeah.
And whatever they come up with, our job, I think my job as leader, if you think you can do 20, I think you can do 100.
Right.
If it's worth it, then
Mhm.
why aren't we doing 100?
Yeah.
But the creativity happens with the diversity of that team.
What about you, Lynn? What does it mean?
Certainly, I think Valerie's hit on a lot of this. For me, I think part of, and I'm not sure I would have ever used that word either, in just sort of thinking about why I do things. But I think one of the most fun things about my being in roles like this is sometimes coming in as sort of the well, let me play devil's advocate. Let's try and think about this in a different way. I'm sure we've all walked into rooms where they say, "I have an idea," and the response you get back is, "We've tried that before," or "That's not how we do things here," or "That's not," whatever it is, a very negative response, whatever it might be. And I think one of the things I enjoy the most is to sort of probe further on that and push people to think beyond the, "Well, we couldn't possibly," to the, "Well, let's try first. Let's explore first. Let's think about what you'd need to actually be able to make those decisions." And I think that's how other people, right? You're really sort of pushing people to help you do the work, right? To inspire them to want to do things a little bit differently. But I think maybe that's the pieces that if I were thinking about leadership in an innovative way, that's what I love is innovation happens when you're disrupting what the status quo is. And I think sometimes when you bring a new leader in whatever capacity is, you're trusting that that's why you've hired them. You've brought them in because you want them to try and help you think about things differently, not necessarily to throw out everything, right? You're not there to just change for change's sake,
Right.
but to be really purposeful about the encouragement to say to people, "I know you have an idea about how to do this better or differently or more effectively or whatever it is," and to try and give them the foundation upon which to do that work.
So when you think about that leadership work and that innovation, I also want you to think a little bit about risk, because presumably there's some risk embedded in that. What's the biggest risk you've taken as a leader?
Oh, goodness.
I love how we just look at each other.
That succeeded or failed?
In some ways, the truthful answer, not to interrupt, I think the biggest risk I took was actually wanting to do this role. I mean, I know that sounds really silly, right? Because that is a very big personal risk.
Right.
I could certainly think of moments throughout my career where I've had to push myself across that I'm going to stick myself out here and people may not like what I'm about to propose or what I'm going to be doing. Sometimes sometimes it's personnel changes. When I was a faculty member, it might have been a proposal I was putting forward. If I was the director of the honors program, I proposed an entire new curriculum to a campus that I wasn't sure was going to appreciate why we needed to change. And knowing that that could impact my ability to continue doing the work that I really enjoy doing. But I don't know if I could think of one specific thing.
And that's hard for me to pinpoint a singular event as being the one big risk. When I think about this, I think about all of the times when so the way that I like to lead is I like to listen. Now, we're not going to listen all day. We're not going to listen for years, right? We're going to listen with purpose. We're done. We're going to move, right? And there have been moments when people actually, my team or the college or my faculty looked at me and said, we don't know what to do. You decide. Because now you are saying what you actually believe. Now, not that any of those other times you don't believe it, but you have gathered this consensus. When you're asked to be that sole kind of person, decision maker, it's a moment. It's a muscle that you build, I think, but it's a moment.
Take courage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would call it. There are multiple times when courage is required. On my previous leadership team and on this one, we have a model of leadership that is called CARE. And it's courage, authenticity, responsibility, and empathy. And the courage is huge. It doesn't mean you're not going to make decisions. Right? It doesn't mean the empathy doesn't mean I'm not going to make decisions. The empathy doesn't even mean that I'm not going to let you go. Like, as I say to my team, I love you, but I'll let you go. Like that's I have to. That's my responsibility combined with empathy. But that courage of making those kind of singular decisions, it's a big deal.
And say CARE again. It was courage,
Authenticity, responsibility, and empathy.
That's fantastic.
It just happened. Literally, those words, we kept using them over and over again, and we kept saying the word CARE, and then we just kind of put it together. But yeah, it's every day. I will go back to where we started our conversation. People ask me all the time, which people in the room may ask me all the time, is it a risk to follow Freeman?
Yeah.
I don't even understand the question. I mean, I understand the question, but when you're doing the job, you just get up and go to work every day, which is what I keep telling you. I don't think about Freeman. I get up and go to work every day. When I think about Freeman, is I just left Lakeland. I thought, oh, what a gift he left me to build upon. But thank goodness I don't walk in the door every day, literally in his office, and think whatever that is that people think that you're going to think.
What would Freeman do? Yeah.
And it's also, I'm a strong believer in rotation of leadership for the reasons that Lynn described. So in my previous role, I was in my 7th year. I thought about that when Kim is leaving after 7 years. I was in my 7th year of a 10-year possibility. And I always told people on the 10th year and the first day, I'm done. I don't care how much you tell me you love what we're doing. On the 10th year and the first day, I'm done, because you need new eyes on this to continue to ascend. I can only be me. Now I can evolve, which is a brilliant thing and an amazing thing about Freeman. How do you evolve with 30 and keep an institution going? There are very few leaders who can continue to evolve in a way that the institution doesn't get stagnant. I'm not one of those. First of all, I'm 56 years old, so 30 years is not possible. Okay. People can say, first of all, as long as Freeman, I'm like, I don't think that's gonna happen. But in that I'm very serious about, like, it's great that we get to come in and look at these institutions with new eyes. And there's going to be a moment where we're going to level out and we know it's time to go.
So I wanted to ask both of you about something that you mentioned when you were talking about the model of leadership, and that's authenticity. Right. And so for women, for many years, You couldn't show up as your whole entire authentic self and expect to be a leader, because you were expected to assimilate. You were expected to adapt to a male world and a vision of leadership that was masculine, not anything else. Do you think that's changing? Do you think that women are currently able to show up more as their authentic selves? It also is true for people of color, right? Are we able to show up more as our authentic selves and still ascend?
Yes. Yes, I mean, I know that was a very hesitant. And maybe it's the hesitation. All I have to build on in some ways is my own experience or the experiences of those women I know who have moved into this world. And so I think I would say yes with an asterisk.
Okay.
I think trying to be someone you're not is exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest piece of advice I would give somebody else who is thinking about moving into any kind of a leadership role like this, whether it's a dean, a provost, a vice president of anything, a president, certainly, that if you go in and you're trying to be a Freeman or you're trying to be whoever, male or female, you are setting yourself up for failure because you're presenting yourself as someone you're not. And ideally, if you're there, if you've built all the skills that are important to have to be a leader, they don't want a Freeman. They don't want whoever those other people are. They want you for you. That said, I would be lying if I sat up here and said there weren't moments when I walked into a room and saw who was sitting around the table and didn't adapt a little, shift a little, never compromising my integrity, never compromising who I was. But I mean, just like you'd walk into a room of anybody, you're going to present a self that's not all of you. And so I think so yes, with an asterisk. I think that my experience has shown that we're always adapting. We're always presenting a certain persona. My children will joke and they'll be like, "Oh, Mom, you're using your dean voice again," right? And they'll be like, I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? This is just my voice." And they're like, "No, it's really not." They ground you, these children. They do. But it's always a presentation of self, I think.
I would agree. I would say yes. And this is why I say yes. Strangely enough, my mentors, who were 2 white men and 2 black men, but all male, have always insisted that I show up fully as me. I can remember when I was interviewing for the Duke job, I went to the first interview and I was like, "Oh, I think that went pretty well." I call my mentors, that's what I do. So I think it went pretty well, but I'm so nervous about this next time. I don't know if I need to adjust, do all these things. I'm not sure if I'm really what they want. He said, "Val, they invited you back for a second interview." And then he starts to joke with me, and it's a running joke. He's like, "Oh yeah, this time go with somebody else. That'll work." Just go with somebody else. I mean, so it's a running joke. But that is the authenticity, like the comfort I tell people that I feel in this job is not because I'm arrogant. It's because I'm going to be me. And I know how to be me. And then we're going to see what happens. And then we're going to let it be.
Right. And I also think that that's a part of our jobs, right? Like a part of our jobs is showing up
Completely.
as much as our whole selves as we can, not because it's about us, but because it gives permission to other people to show up as themselves. Right. And if we don't do it, it sends a signal about what they have permission to do.
Absolutely.
And so there's a reason we're sitting in these chairs, right? If anybody could be sitting in these chairs, but we're here. So we have to, I just think it's very important.
I would also say to people, you mentioned it earlier when you think about people who are looking for jobs like this. First of all, I don't even know what that means because of my experience.
You're about to hear from a whole room of people. I can ask you questions about that.
So it's like, I never looked for, not that in that kind of prescribed way. But having said that, fit matters. fit is everything.
Yeah.
People say, can you be a president anywhere? No. No, I got to wake up every day as me and be able to be me with people who want me to be me. And when I'm me and you want me to be me, we're good.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that it works. So the authenticity is like really important, but it's not any job. It's this job. Right. And it'll be whatever job is after that. Right. But it's not just, I want to be a president. What does that mean? Out of context, I don't even know what that means.
Right.
But yeah, everywhere I've been has let me be me.
Yeah. So you've both talked about mentors a little bit and the importance of mentors. What do you do to pull up to mentor now that you are in positions of authority and power? Do you? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, I don't know. Good luck. But
I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. I think as much as I can, and some of it's just, you know, sort of like stopping when the student wants to talk to you, is trying to be really, and you do have to be intentional about it. I believe that you have to stop and ask the people around you, well, what is it you want to do next, right? What are you happy? What do you want to work on? What kind of professional development are you looking for? You know, I've had lots of people who've encouraged me to take part in professional development events and to participate in academies and those sorts of things. But in some ways, it was the more interpersonal mentoring that I found the most valuable. The people who were like, here's my cell phone. When you have a question, give me a call. And I just try and be that person that I think maybe this sums it up, is one of the biggest compliments for me is when people say, oh my gosh, you're such a real person. And I don't know what they mean exactly by that. But you're so approachable, you're so whatever. And I think, okay, good. Then even if I'm not doing it right, I'm trying and I'm putting the effort out there, because if people are too afraid to ask me questions or come up and introduce themselves or whatever it is, I can't do the things that I would love to be able to do, which is have all the people, right, be doing this or whatever it is that they want as quickly as possible, because they're going to, in their own timeline. And that I think would be a really meaningful thing to be able to look back on after a career.
Yeah, no, mentorship is everything to me because of my own experience. It's been the gift to me, and now it's the gift to me to give it away. There's a game I'm always playing in my mind of I wonder who you are. And I'm looking out at these people in the audience, I wonder who you are. And I used to do it in my classroom, 300 folks taking organic chemistry. And I'd look out and I wonder, I pick like 10, 12 people who are unassuming but brilliant, quiet, maybe not the first ones on the front row raising their hands, trying to come to University of Maryland, right? But they're in there. And I'm like, well, who out there doesn't know how awesome they are? Who doesn't know that they are great yet? And when I find them, oh my. And I'm a little stalky with them. I used to tell my students, don't let me scare you, right? Don't let me scare you. But if I see something in you, I'm coming. Right? I'm coming. It could be walking across campus, it could be anywhere, but it's joy for me. So everywhere I go, I wonder who people are. And then the gift that people gave to me was to carry me to places that I could not imagine. Open doors that I didn't even know existed. I mean, experiences that we've had, we couldn't see them from 2 steps away. And to be able to do that for our students or faculty or staff or humans. One of my students says, I want to work at Google. I'm like, I know the CEO. If I do, right? Or whatever it is. But doing that is just a beautiful thing. Great joy.
Yeah, good. All right. So in a second, I'm keying it up. In a second, I'm going to toss it to the audience for questions. First, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. So you got a second to percolate. Okay. What advice would you give your teenage self? Other than don't drink on the weekends and drive.
Yeah. I think I'd give myself more personal advice than professional advice. I know this sounds maybe off topic. I would tell myself, I was an athlete when I was in high school. Please do not stop lifting weights. Do not stop working on your stamina. The stamina required for this job. Holy cow. Holy cow. There are days when I go home and I'm too tired to eat. And that is something, if you know me, that is something else. So I think I tell myself, take care of your own health and don't let that be a priority, because, you know, right now it's like, if I don't literally write it on my calendar, it doesn't happen. Yeah. I think I'd tell myself to spend as much time as I can with the people who really matter in my life, my parents, the people from, you know, my youth who were paying attention to me in a mentorship kind of way. Use them as your catapult and your strength as you hit the times, because I'm sure we could both list quickly the moments when you're like, oh gosh, oh, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Whatever it is, right? Those moments of crisis that we all have. But just, and to learn how to public speak a whole lot earlier. Gosh, if oh my goodness, take that class, even though you don't want to.
Yeah, that's so good. I was the 4-H public speaking state competition. No, this is my mother, who was an English teacher, who decided that she was going to stand me up and teach you how to do that since I could breathe, right? From church on, right? I had an Easter speech and then everything else, right? So y'all had Easter speech. I know you did, right? Yeah, it's something about it though, right? So much gratitude for those things. I would tell myself, just because of how I approached life, of needing to be in control of everything, to relax. Like, literally, I mean, I think of all the mistakes that I've made and I didn't mess it up. It takes a lot to mess it up, right? And even the things that are mistakes are building you towards. So when I see students make the same mistakes I do, I'm like, yeah, I understand. It's hard to have compassion if you've never made a mistake, or you've never acknowledged that you've made a mistake. So, you know, just take the advice of people who know more than you do, and don't take it too seriously. Make sure you don't miss the present trying to plan for the thing you can't even control.
Easier said than done.
It is. Today it's harder.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay in the present and not be concerned about. Concern is not to be worried.
Right.
In a way that is unproductive, but I would have planned a lot less.
Okay. So the last question I'm going to ask you, I ask for your advice to yourselves. Sitting out in this room is a future college president. Sitting out in this room is future dean of a school. What would you say? What advice would you give to them as they ascend in leadership?
You can go first.
Thanks.
Yeah, I gave that to her and it looked like a gift, but it really wasn't.
Re-gift that one.
Everything is an opportunity. I think maybe the biggest piece of advice is keep doing this. Keep showing up like this for yourselves. There'll be there are always a lot of people who are around you who will tell you no, who will tell you, oh gosh, well, maybe you need to rethink that, or are you sure you can do all those things, or whatever it is. Don't let those voices stop you from doing the thing that brings you joy. And if leadership brings you joy, then for goodness sakes, we need good leaders in this world like we have never needed good leaders before. And I am forever marveling at the people that I now have a chance to meet, most of whom intimidate me no end. I just got back from a new president's conference. And I thought, what am I doing in this room? Like, truly, what? But gosh, it's so much fun.
You just turned off.
See, they're done with me. I'm talking too much. Don't let anybody turn you off either. Take the chance before you think you're ready is, I think, maybe the other piece is don't wait until you've ticked every box on the job application, or you think you've got complete control over whatever it is, because you will never have complete control. And every job list is a wish list that no human being could ever accomplish. And that, you know, so apply before you think you are ready.
Great advice.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really good
Yeah,
advice.
it is. So I think I go back to maybe what we've talked about before. Be sure that you have some mentors who can perhaps see beyond what you can see for yourselves, and just trust them. And make sure they're trustworthy.
Yes.
Because they actually are not trying to make you into them,
Right.
but they're making you into your best you. It's critical. It is critical. When I was 17, my very first mentor, who I still have to this day, said to me, "You can get a PhD." I was just first semester. He said, "You can get a PhD." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" My second mentor, who was my PhD advisor, said, "You could be a faculty member." Like, you got to be kidding, right? My third mentor, who was an administrative, he was a chancellor. He said, "Oh, you can do academic leadership." And then my fourth mentor, who is Freeman, said, "You can be a college president," right? Like, so get you some people who can imagine what you probably, you want to imagine it, but you can't quite reconcile it. For me, I couldn't quite reconcile it in myself, and then listen to them. The other piece of advice I would give you is, in the authenticity space, don't ever, even those great mentors, if you don't agree, now don't do that out of fear.
Right.
But if you feel like, oh, my PhD advisor, my first job I took, someone in Iowa, right? My PhD advisor, my first job I took was at Iowa State University as a faculty member. I also had an offer at MIT. I was his first PhD student. Where do you think he wanted me to go? Right? Because it's a thing, right? It's a thing. I'm like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
It just wasn't right for multiple reasons. And we still joke about it to this day. I say, "I think I did okay, Bud." I call him Bud. It's like, I think I did okay. And he's like, "Yeah, but imagine who you could have been if you just started it." He's not going to let it go. I'm confused. Like, what is happening here? But make sure the authenticity, mentorship with your authenticity has to remain. But then go where they say you can go. Don't check all the boxes. You check them. You just don't know it. I always tell people, you can't practice for this.
Oh.
If you're like, "I'm gonna wait till I'm ready," I don't know what that means.
No.
Tomorrow, right now, something could be happening right now. I hate to say this.
Something is happening right now. You're
Well,
working at
the thing that I'm going to finish with is
Apple Watch, so I don't know.
something could be happening right now where both of us are losing our jobs.
Oh, don't say that.
It's true, right? It's actually true. 14,000, 13,000 people who you are, the buck stops with you. Something could be happening right now on my campus where, because the buck stops with me, whether or not I did it or not, knew about it or not, I'm done. Like, that is the nature of this thing, right? So ready, I don't know what that means. I mean, some preparation for sure.
Right.
Mentors who believe you can do it, go. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So there are two mics in the room. If you have a question, you can go to either one of the mics. Thank you so much for a question. And if you have a really loud voice, you could also just yell. So
have a loud voice, so I'll use the microphone anyway. Thank you both for coming. This has been really wonderful. I'm Elena Kyriakakis, and I'm our acting vice president and general counsel. So what you're saying really resonates a lot with me. And question, you both have talked about this somewhat, but and the role of mentors. But what tips do you have outside of mentors for mitigating imposter syndrome so that you have that courage to let the buck stop here?
You want to go first?
No, this one's all. I have watched your talks on this topic.
I just love it when people ask me this question, because it is one of those things that happened in my life that, while it was happening, felt horrible, but I couldn't do what I do without it. So I am a recovered imposter syndrome person. Had it till I was a full professor. Went through all of, I have my favorite job at the time. I just became a full professor at UNC Chapel Hill, back at the institution where I got my undergraduate degree. I'm in North Carolina, which is home for me. I'm in this department that raised me. They're treating me like a queen. Life is great. And I'm crying, almost crying coming into work every day, wondering when they're going to figure out that I'm not supposed to be here. And you know what, if you have it, you know what I'm talking about. And the more good things that happen, the worse it feels. Because you feel like you're just further and further out there on that limb, like, oh my God, they actually do think like they gave me that award. Now they really don't think I can do this. Like what, wow, right? I will tell you, I do an imposter syndrome workshop. I've done it probably almost 100 times now. It is my gift back. Because if you've never walked in those shoes, you don't know what that's like. But if you have, you definitely do. I will tell you just really quickly, email me, president@umbc.edu. I will send you, there's this document that I Googled. I was in such pain. I Googled these feelings. I didn't know what to call it. And it came up and I thought, my God, this is a thing. 10 ways to stop feeling like a fraud. I started practicing it probably about a year. It took me about a year, with a lot of accountability from a couple of other people. And a year later, when I tell you that there's nothing inside me now that says what my talents and gifts are not equal to somebody else's, we might be different. This is why I love diversity, because she might be the rock star in that other thing. I used to want to be her, or valued what she had more than what I had. And I've learned what I have is fine. Like what I have is good. It's mine, just like what you have is yours. When we get together, we're gonna be amazing. But I don't need to be you. And it took a practicing, and it wasn't trivial, but it's doable. And I will just say this for all the people who, this is my thing, I'm so sorry.
No.
I will say this for all the people who are sitting there right now with imposter syndrome thinking she's different than I am. Because that's what we do. We automatically assume, oh, no. She's different, like she's special. I'm like, no, you don't understand. The same. It is possible to get over it. And I'm so grateful because that happened when I was a chair. I could have never, right before I was a chair, I could have never said yes to being chair, never said yes to being dean. And this, imagine what my head would be saying with 30 years of Freeman Hrabowski. It doesn't say it. What it says is, you're supposed to be here right now. That. Yeah. Whoever it is in the room. Whoever it is in the room. President at umbc.edu, I'd love to send you 10 ways to stop feeling like a fraud. It's really good.
Any other questions? Yes. Professor Hoke. Thank you, Kathy. Love you back because you're awesome.
I have a son at Salisbury and a nephew at UNC.
Oh,
And
excellent.
I'm an alum, so I'm sorry.
Fabulous.
And University of Maryland Perry School of Law alum and faculty member. Why I did that, I don't know. In any case, this is totally kind of a curveball, but I'm hoping there's energy in this room for it. The President Biden, did the student loan forgiveness or forbearance program and trying to cancel the debt, if you will, experiencing legal hurdles in doing so. What role do we have? What do you have as presidents of the campus, us as faculty, but the institutions themselves have in making sure that the list of folks who are more challenged by this reality, first generation immigrant families, Black families, other low income, disabled community, how do we address the real problem that college just costs too?
Oh, I went first last time. I should have done that imposter. No. I know. Oh, that phone call is coming in. No. I think this is, I'm not sure there's a simple answer to this. I'm not sure we'd have enough time. We'd need a whole nother probably day, more, week, month, year, whatever, to help address that. I think what I would say today is, I think this is something that we're all going to have to work together on, and that I think it is critically important that we start to think of creative ways to work with students to make sure that they not only have the opportunity to attend college, and college is not for everyone. I think we also have to start with that premise, is there are lots and lots of people who can do extraordinary things with their lives that do not involve going to college. But for the student who does want to go to college and who knows that a college education is going to change their lives, their career trajectory, often their families' lives, their communities' lives, and so on and so forth. I think our job, one of the most important jobs we have, is to help be a part of creating what those pathways are. I think one of the things that's the biggest challenge is one of the reasons I think that it's so difficult and why higher education is so important is that most of the money that universities spend is on their own people, right? It's paying salaries. And so when you look for places to reduce costs, that means reducing the other people for whom we are responsible, right? Because oftentimes our universities are, like in Salisbury, we're one of the biggest employers there. If we started laying people off because we needed to save money, we would hurt our local economy and we would hurt our local people. So I think it's this big puzzle. So I would love to see us find new pathways for scholarships. I think, and we have to think about reducing, but I think we also have to think about growing the funding that we have to give to people to be able to pay whatever those bills are. And thinking about the creative ways to build those endowments and to build those scholarship opportunities that are based on merit, on need, on all the pieces, and maybe to think of just faster ways to get through. If college is going to be expensive, and we're in Maryland, right? This is one of the things our legislature is talking about a lot. We've got new laws that are going to try and help work with this. I don't know what it all means. Every day I hear a little bit more about Blueprint Maryland, and I think, oh goodness, now what? Now what are we going to do? Because I love the intention. It's the execution that I think is going to be a humongous challenge. Not a perfect answer, but it's certainly something that I think we have to work on together. I don't know if you have some.
Yeah, I don't have an answer. I mean, I don't have a solution. Access means everything to us. And I think it's going to be creative, but it's not going to be one size fits all. I have students who, I just left Shady Grove a few days ago. I have students there who that is their best version because they don't live on campus. And so it is significantly cheaper for them. So for 2 years, this transfer pathway may be something we are going to work on in improving our transfer pathways, because there's students who can afford 2 years of college, but not 4 years.
Right.
And then for me, it's also going to be philanthropy. I've got to raise money for this. The thing that pains me is that for some students and for many of our students, it's not the $25,000, it's the $300.
Yeah.
It's the $3,000 to get them registered for the next, like those critical juncture kinds of dollars are also important. So I don't have a solution. We're still looking at our whole financial aid model and I'm trying to understand it more fully. But this is really important to me because the economic diversity of my student body is a version of diversity that I have to keep at the top of the list. Yeah.
So we're at the hour. So please join me in thanking our president. Did you need to make any announcements about upcoming events? You're very welcome. Wait, where is it?
Thank you so much to both of you. I think we should take the Val Lynn show on the road, don't you? Oh, it's great. And thank you, Renee, for reminding me. I would love to announce that we already have another fabulous speaker coming in February. It's actually going to be part of our P4 series, but also sponsored partially by Umbrella, and that is Nina Totenberg, NPR's Supreme Court reporter, will be coming on February 14th to this room, and Dr. Gerald and Dean Hutchins will sort of put their roadshow back on and speak with Nina Totenberg. So put February 14th on your calendar. And thank you for coming.